this is WLTCG. My name is Roderick, speeding in with the deck profile for you today. This is the Sandora deck that I piloted against Sam in our recent judge match that we had about a week or two ago. If you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend giving it a watch. Link below in the description. Or rather, I should say this is a modified version of that deck. There's a gacha log for the deck that I piloted against him in the video, as I said, in the description. And I kind of wanted to tweak the original idea that I had before and see where I could get with it now. There were definitely some choices that I could have made in the deck building process that would have made my matchup much better. And so I've applied some of those and then some to this deck here. Now, originally, I was going to include the discussion about sideboard for this deck in this video, but I believe I will hold off on that for a while. But I will put like a template side deck into the gacha log for this particular build, just so you can kind of see where my mind is at. I highly encourage you, if you're interested, to actually come up with your own ideas for a side deck, and even cards in the main deck if you feel like there are some better choices that you're much more comfortable with, which we'll see what cards I've chosen for this deck here in just a moment. And so with that out of the way, I say let's go ahead and get into his deck profile. So as you see here, my ruler is Isis. This is very important. She is one of two rulers of the fire attribute in the new Valhalla cluster. And for this deck to work, you are going to need a fire ruler. Now, admittedly, you actually don't need Isis to actually pull off the base strategy. However, she is, well, very pretty, and I do like the Egyptian aesthetic. Plus, there are actually some cards that do work in tandem with her, such as the Master Rune choices that we're making. So there's definitely a reason why I chose Isis, but if you feel like you want to choose Fuji, the other ruler, feel free to do so. But with that out of the way, let's talk about Isis herself. So again, her name, Isis, very basic. She's an ascendant ruler of the fire attribute, 10 divinity, like all the other new Valhalla rulers, with a judgment of 2 fire and 2 void, and energized for red. Now, I am going to talk about her J ruler for a minute, but I would like to point out that the overall goal of this deck isn't to judgment the Isis, but I feel like going over what she can do could be important in some matchups for those who don't know. So we have Isis, the 100 weapon master. She is a ascendant fire attribute, 1400 attack, 800 defense, divinity 10 once again, with natural first strike. You can pay 1 fire. This card deals 200 damage to target J resonator. I apologize if my camera's freaking out. Just trying to get in good view so you can see what the text on the card is. For 1 fire, you can also gain precision until end of turn, which allows you to attack into unrested J resonators. Or you could pay 2 fire, and this card gains barrier until end of turn to protect her from any targeting from your opponent. So her J ruler side is actually very potent and very powerful. As I said before though, with the way that this deck is going to function, you really won't be judgmenting Isis, at least that's not the goal. But you do know what she does now, and so you are free to make any crazy plays you would like with that. So I'm going to go ahead and sit this card to the side here. And before we hop into the deck, I am going to be talking about the rune choices and then the magic stone choices, because they will give context to the rest of the cards in my deck. So let's get started. First and foremost, we have the star rune, which is Sandora's Invasion. If my camera focused, there we go. For 2 fire and 3 void, divinity 3, chant/rune to the fire attribute. You may pay 1 void less to play this card from a rune area, which is very nice, paying 4 for this card, especially with its effect. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may put a fire resonator with total cost 1, resonator with total cost 2, and or a fire resonator with total cost 3 from among them into the field. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in a random order. So basically, you jam this in, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck. The golden moment is to hit a 1 cost, 2 cost, and 3 cost fire resonator and just plop them right onto the field. It allows you to be very aggressive, especially with the amount of swiftness resonators we have in the deck, and it is a very powerful card. especially with another card that it'll combo with that we'll get to later. But this is a very strong card. So for the rest of our runes, they play kind of support here. We have Sandstorm for 1 fire. It'll focus here. There we go. Divinity 1, Chant/Rune. You may pay 1 fire less to play this card from rune area, so it means it costs no will to play if it's being played from your rune area. This card deals 200 damage to each resonator your opponent controls, which doesn't sound like much damage, but it actually helps a lot in situations where a resonator has, 200 defense or less, or you just need that little bit of chip damage to get rid of something if they've taken a hit, or if you want to threaten their board state. If you have things on your board, makes them kind of hesitant to block if they're afraid of losing resonators. But to supplement Sandstorm, we do have Poison Stinger, which is a 1-cost fire rune, pure rune, which is one of the reasons why we need a fire ruler that uses divinity, since pure runes can only be matched with the ruler of that color. Divinity 2, Quick Cast. This card deals 200 damage to target resonator. If that resonator would be dealt damage this turn, it is dealt double that much instead. So going back to Sandstorm, a nice combo is to be able to Poison Stinger a target and then play Sandstorm. They take 200 from this card, and then 200 here, which is doubled by Poison Stinger's effect, effectively dealing 600 damage to that resonator. And again, since this is free, this combo only costs 1 fire will. It is definitely potent and can actually save you in a lot of cases where you would otherwise be in a pinch. To complement those, we have Explosion for 1 fire, quick cast, Divinity 2, pure rune. So this card deals 700 damage to target attacking or blocking resonator. So since we are very aggressive, we want to push as much damage as possible. We want to get in as many attacks as possible, and this card helps out a lot. And last but not least, we have our Master Rune, Whirlwind Conflagration. 2 fire, 3 void, Divinity 2, Master Rune. Play this card only if your J ruler is Isis or Isis the 100 weapon master. So again, we have to have Isis for this. This won't work for Fuji. Target up to 6 players and or J resonators. This card deals 200 damage to the first, 400 to the second, 600 to the third, 800 to the fourth, 1,000 to the fifth, and 1,200 to the sixth. So effectively, it's a great way of controlling the board, but also this can be used effectively to get in some final damage if you're missing just that bit. And also it punishes your opponent from establishing a wide board if they can't react to this card. And remember, once you've chosen your targets and assigned the damage numbers, those are the damage numbers that stick. So even if they banish some cards in response to you targeting, it doesn't change how much the other targets will take. There are other effects that can change that, but banishing a card alone won't cause the damage numbers to drop down, so to speak. So we've gotten those out of the way. Let's talk about the stones. Here we have 4 Dragon Ore. It is a nice, pretty stone. This is the promo. Special Magic Stone. Treat this card as a Fire Magic Stone. That text is very important for what we're about to go over in the deck. But you can tap to produce red. So, duh. And then when this card enters the field, put 2 strength counters on your J/ruler, which is also a very important effect for what we want to do with this deck. We're running 4 of those. 4 is the max. And we are running 6 basic Fire Magic Stones. And again, there's a reason why we're choosing just basic stones and not any other special stones. But there you have it. We have 4 Dragon Ore, 6 Fire Magic Stones. With that out of the way, let's start talking about the actual deck. We have 4 Sandworm, 1 cost Fire Resonator, 300 attack, 400 defense. It is a insect with swiftness, and this card cannot be attacked. So very cheap, getting in damage, and plus your opponent cannot attack back into it. So that means they're forced to either block it in order to do battle, or they have to spend resources to get rid of it. Next we have 4 Venomous Scorpion. I believe I said that right. Yep. Again, 1 fire, 300 attack, 100 defense. Resonator is Insect, and again, we have Swiftness. However, this card has an ability that says if this card would deal damage to a Resonator, it deals double that much instead. So again, another reason why your opponent would not want to do battle with this card, because their Resonator could actually, well, get blown up by a little Scorpion. Only 100 defense and 300 attack, but you could punish your opponent very heavily for trying to block that. So here we have Shadow of Chaos. If I could focus in on here. For 1 fire, 300 attack and 300 defense. Cthulhu. This card gains +3/+3, and Swiftness as long as you control 4 or more fire magic stones. So this card right here is the reason why we are running 10 fire magic stones. A lot of the other stones in the format don't count as fire magic stones, even if they produce fire will. But it is important to have that text on these stones here that says treat this card as a fire magic stone, because it allows him to reach that buff of the +300 attack and defense and Swiftness on turn 4 always. Very powerful card, especially for 1 fire. And remember, these are cards that can be pulled out with Sandora's Invasion. So that's a pretty bonkers card to pull out for your 1 cost. And lastly, we have Sprinting Time Horse. Again, 1 fire will, 200 attack and defense. If we can get focused there. Beast. When this card enters the field, another target Resonator you control gains Swiftness until end of turn. And when this card is put into a graveyard from your field, put 4 strength counters on your J/Ruler. That last effect can be very handy for putting strength counters on our ruler. And again, we're about to go over why that's important. Plus, you can also give another Resonator Swiftness. So if you pull this off with Invasion, you get to give another Resonator Swiftness if it doesn't already have it. Very handy card. So let's move this stuff out of the way. Those were our 1 cost Resonators. For our 2 costs, we have, starting off, Piggy, Hoel's Great Hero Pig. Costs 1 fire, 1 void. Focus, there we go. 500 attack, 700 defense, and is also a beast. When this card enters the field, put 2 strength counters on your J/Ruler. Remove 2 strength counters from your J/Ruler. Target Resonator gains Swiftness until end of turn. Remove 2 strength counters from your J/Ruler, and target Resonator gains Flying until end of turn. So this is the reason why we're putting strength counters on our ruler, because we get to remove them to give various effects such as Flying and Swiftness to our Resonators. This is very powerful, very potent, especially since Dragonor gives you 2 on entry, and Sprinting Time Horse gives you 4 on death. And he gives you 2 on entry as well, so we're just constantly finding ways to get those strength counters. Very powerful card for your 2 costs. Sit those over there. Another 2 cost card that we're running is Frontline Warrior. He's a very straightforward card. 1 fire, 1 void as well. 600 attack, 500 defense. Let's get that focus. Human. Swiftness. Very basic, but very powerful. Next for basic, we have 2 variant Dread Touch. Now, I would recommend 4 if you're able, but if not, there's another card that I'm about to show after this that could fill up this slot. But as many Dread Touch as you can, the better. So, 1 fire, 1 void, 600 attack and defense. Swiftness is also a dinosaur. Very similar to Frontline Warrior. It goes fast, it hits hard, end of story. Next, we have our variant Dread Touch replacement, Isis Elite Guard. For 2 fire, you get a 600 attack, 500 defense human. This card gains 0 attack and 300 defense, as well as Swiftness, as long as you control 2 or more other Resonators. The beauty of this is, with Sandora's Invasion, most of the time you're going to be entering the field with 3 Resonators. So she gets Swiftness, in a sense, from that. Very handy. And getting more defense also helps. Makes her harder to kill. Alright, so those are our 2 cost Resonators. For our 3 costs, we have 4 Eruptivant. This is a fire, 3 fire to be exact, 700 attack and defense beast. Beast you control gains Swiftness, does include himself. Whenever another Resonator you control attacks, this card gains +100 attack and defense to end of turn. So he's a great swarm Resonator, letting everything else attack first, and then he comes in for a massive finishing blow. Very powerful card, and he enables all of your beasts to gain swiftness. So Sprinting Time Horse, as well as himself, and Piggy Hoel's Great Hero Pig. So that means it allows Piggy to spend less counters on himself and more counters on giving things flying for the evasion. More for our 3-cost slot, we have Hoel Pig Squadron. Let's get that zoom. For 3 straight fire, 800 attack and defense, Beast. Already comes with swiftness and precision. When this card is put into a graveyard from the field, search your deck for a card named Hoel Pig and put it into the field. If you control Piggy Hoel's Great Hero Pig, search your deck for any number of cards named Hoel Pig and put them into the field instead. Entities put into the field this way gain swiftness until end of turn, and then you shuffle your deck. We are running Piggy, but we're not running Hoel Pig, so unfortunately we won't be able to use the full extent of that effect. But him being a natural 800 attack and defense speedy boy allows us to do great damage, and he's a selection for the 3-cost slot. And for a lot of you, you may already know, but I would like to reiterate, swiftness allows the Resonator to attack on entry. So instead of waiting a turn, you get to go ham right then and there. I don't think I need to tell you that. Here we have Ultra Dragon, Shooting Star, just 1 copy in the main. 3 fire, 1000 attack, 1000 defense. He is a Dragon/Guardian. He has natural flying and barrier to water and darkness. Whenever a Resonator enters the field under your opponent's control without being played from your opponent's hand, this card deals 2000 damage to it. When this card is put into a graveyard from the field, discard a card at random. This is a monster of a card. It helps in a lot of situations, in a lot of matchups that this deck otherwise would have struggled with. The matchups that it does help out in are abundant enough to be wary of them, but not abundant enough to want to invest the entirety of your deck space to this card, hence why we're running 1. You can go as high as 2, that would be fine as well. I do have 1 in my sideboard. Again, you'll see that in the gotcha log. But being resistant, being immune to water and darkness effects that target is very important. It helps you also beat decks that would want to cheat Resonators in through various effects by absolutely destroying them. It's all around a good card. I can't stress that enough. Great card. Yeah, that's what I can say about it. And as natural flying. Piggy can give it swiftness. Good stuff. However, the most important Resonator, aside from the core, in this entire deck would have to be Welser, the Archmage of Fire. So we're going to go over him briefly. He has a lot of text on his card. Oops, sorry about that. And I'm going to try to make this as short as possible. I'll have the card up here so that way you can read the text in its entirety. But he is a 6-cost, 3 fire, 3 void, fire Resonator, 1400 attack and defense, and he is of the wizard race. So primarily the reason why we play him is he has an ability that says whenever you play a chant, copy it. You may choose new targets for this copy. This ability triggers only once per turn. So if he's on the field, you get to copy a chant, such as Sandora's Evasion. Although it's a rune, it's still considered a chant. So, yeah, play him, play this card, use it twice, get a lot of Resonators, win the game. Very straightforward. But you might be thinking, okay, 6 costs is a lot to pay just to get off that effect for Sandora's Invasion. We could have played 2 to 3 Sandora's Invasions before we even see this Welser on the field. Well, that's why he has a God's Art. Again, I'll have the God's Art here for you to view in its entirety, but basically, during your turn, you may pay 2 Firewill and reveal this card from your hand. If you do, you can put it into the field. At the end of your opponent's next turn, you remove this card from the game. So, effectively what you would want to do is with 2 open will, you pay the 2, you reveal it to your opponent. If they don't have any responses, you put it into the field, and now you get to gain all of the effects, all the niceness of copying chants, so as long as he's on the field. And at the end of your opponent's next turn, he gets removed from the game. One way we can abuse this is by keeping up 2 Firewill before our recovery phase coming into our 4th turn. And before recovery, we activate his God's Art, reveal him to our opponent, then put him into the field, recover, and then we play Sandora's Invasion. Massive payoff. if you get it to resolve. There are cards in the format that can prevent him from resolving, and he would end up staying in your hand. And remember, a God's Art can only be used once per game, of that name, I should say. So it's a bit of a risk, but in a lot of cases, you can pull this off and end up making some massive, massive plays. We do run 3 of him. We want to see him, but we also don't want him to clog our hand, hence the low number. All right. With that out of the way, forgot. We're also running 2 Sandora's Invasion in the main deck, primarily because if you draw into this card, it helps out situations where your opponent has survived your initial invasion and you just need 1 more to close out the game. Having those extra cards in there definitely would help. That's my preference. You can choose to fill these 2 slots in however you please, but I like being safe. So overall, as I said before, primary goal of the deck is to swarm your opponent. Ideally, you would want to be in a situation where you would have Eruptifant in the field, along with another 1 and 2 cost Resonator. And the best case scenario is that Welser is out, and you get to get multiple of these Resonators, so such as an Eruptifant and a Squadron, or 2 Eruptifants, Eruptifant Ultra Dragon, and just many, many beat sticks in the deck. It's actually very straightforward, and it's not a hard learning curve at all. It's almost on autopilot. The only downside is that there are a lot of effects that can interact with the deck that would end up slowing it down. But it's a nice, fun deck to try out at your locals if you ever get the chance, and you just get to go ham, especially in situations where you're playing at locals and you just want to end the match quickly, go take a cigarette break, go get some lunch. This is a good way to do it. It's either you win very fast or you lose very fast. Again, as I mentioned, I won't be talking about the sideboard in this video, but I will have a sideboard for the deck in the Gotcha log that is in the description. Play around with it as you choose, as you please, and also let me know what you think about the deck. Are there any changes you would like to make to it? Are there any other combos that you can think of that would go well with this strategy? Feel free to let me know in the comments section. And as a matter of fact, go ahead and post your videos, or not videos. Go ahead and post your deck list if you have any gotchas. I want to see what you're thinking. I want to see what you guys are thinking about. I'm very interested in seeing what different ideas and strategies other people come up with. And really on this channel, we just like to have fun and see what kind of jank tricks and strategies we can pull off. And with that said, have a good day. And remember, the Egyptian thighs, they don't tell lies.